States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioner Acevedo?
Present.
Commissioner Creighton?
Present.
Commissioner Walton? Commissioner Reckner? Commissioner Brooks?
Present.
Commissioner Leonetti? Chairman Morelli?
Present.
Commissioners Alton, Reckner, and Leonetti are absent. Before we begin, case number 3256, 35 Arizona, will not be voted on. It will be held over to the next meeting. And we had a request for a modification to variance number, I printed out the wrong thing. Case number 2990, that will not be voted on tonight either, and it will be heard at the December meeting. On to the calendar. Case number 3266, application of Mohammed Mia of 80 East Pine Street, Long Beach, New York, for a variance in the following section of the zoning code of ordinances of the city of Long Beach, New York. It will be voted on? Okay. It's not, which one?
3256.
The case number is 2990.
No, that was
No, 3256.
So then the one that was held over from the past 2 months, 3256, is being voted on?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so voting. Case number 3256, application of Francine Farragher of 93 Ohio Avenue, Long Beach, New York, for a variance in the following sections of the zoning code of ordinances of the city of Long Beach, New York. 9-105.5C front yard, 9-105.5D side yard, for a new FEMA-compliant house at 35 Arizona Avenue, Long Beach, New York, also known as Section 59, Block 261, Lot 26, on the Nassau County Land and Tax Map. Who will introduce a motion on this application?
I make a motion to grant.
Commissioner Acevedo has introduced a motion to grant the application. Who will second?
I will second.
Chairman Morelli has seconded the motion. Commissioner Creighton?
Grant.
Commissioner Brooks?
Grant.
Commissioner Acevedo?
Grant.
Chairman Morelli. This application has been granted. I don't know what I did here. Case number 3266, application of Mohammed Mia of 80 East Pine Street, Long Beach, New York, for a variance in the following section of the zoning code of ordinances of the city of Long Beach, New York. 9-113.2G off-street parking, for new off-street parking in the front yard at 80 East Pine Street, Long Beach, New York, also known as Section 59, Block 92, Lot 194, on the Nassau County Land and Tax Map.
Is the applicant present, Mr. Mia? That microphone, please. And please give us your name and address for the record.
Yeah.
And we understand you have to give us your name and address.
Good evening. Mohammed Mia, address 80 East Pine Street, Long Beach.
Okay. So, Mr. Mia, I understand that you're here for 9-113.2, which you're looking to add a parking spot in front of your house. Am I correct?
That is correct.
All right. Can you please describe the parking spot for me? I see there's already a curb cut there. Am I correct?
Correct.
So go ahead. Please describe what you're looking to do.
We have 2 cars in our primary residence, and it's difficult to find parking in our street, so I was looking to make a driveway in front of my yard to park the 2 cars off the street and into our front yard.
Okay. What would be that driveway? Do you have a survey that would show me the length of that driveway to the house?
I believe it was submitted.
More than 20 feet.
Is it? I believe so. It was submitted. I don't have the exact dimensions in my head.
Okay. Well, I don't see
I don't see a survey.
a denial in the building department. I am looking at the survey.
So are you looking to keep the same curb cut? You just want to be able to park where the grass is now?
That is correct. That is correct.
So does that grassy patch cover the width of the car, or are you going to have to park in front of what looks like the sidewalk to the front door?
No, the car will be able to cover the grassy patch. So there will be no blockage of the front door whatsoever,
Nor that walkway to the front door?
nor the walkway, that's correct.
Any other members?
But you'll have to cross the walkway in order, because you'll still have the same curb cut, right? You're planning on going into the curb cut and then turning to park in that area, going, I guess, across that walkway, right?
The property has two grassy patches, so the curb cut's already in front of one of them, so there'll be no need to cross anything. I just back in and there'll be nothing to like alter coming out of the front door or going in whatsoever.
There'll be no change whatsoever in the curb cut, correct?
That's correct.
Any other members?
Or going over to the neighbor's yard? Because it looks very close.
No, there's plenty of distance from them.
I see you have that large house next to you that has 2 parking spots in front of that, underneath that as well already.
That was done by
Yep.
Longview.
Okay.
Anyone else? All right, would anyone in the audience like to speak either in favor or against this? Would anyone like to make a motion on the application?
I'll make a motion to grant.
I'll second.
Case number 3266, application of Mohammed Mia of 80 East Pine Street, Long Beach, New York, for a variance on the following section of the zoning code of ordinances of the city of Long Beach, New York. 9-113.2G off-street parking for new off-street parking in the front yard at 80 East Pine Street, Long Beach, New York, also known as Section 59, Block 92, Lot 194, on the Nassau County Land and Tax Map. Commissioner Creighton has introduced the motion to grant the application. Chairman Morelli has seconded the motion. Commissioner Creighton?
Grant.
Commissioner Acevedo?
Grant?
Commissioner Brooks?
Grant.
Chairman Morelli. This application has been granted.
Thank you, Commissioners.
You're welcome.
Case number 3267, application of Leonard and Anthony Mangelli of 245 Westchester Street, Long Beach, New York, for a variance from the following sections of the zoning code of ordinances of the city of Long Beach, New York. 9-105.2K use, 9-1121 off-street parking, for a 2-year conditional temporary variance for a 2-family use at 245 Westchester Street, Long Beach, New York, also known as Section 59, Block 57, Lot 57, on the Nassau County Land and Tax Map.
Good evening, Mr. Smith.
Good morning, Your
Long
Honor.
time no see.
Yes, good to see you again. Members of the board, nice to see you as well. My name is Robert Smith. I'm an attorney in Long Beach. I have an office at 24 East Park Avenue, Long Beach, New York, and I reside at 47 Vinton Street, Long Beach, New York. This application arises from a purchase of a house. Some years ago, I came to this zoning board and obtained a 2-year conditional variance for the use of the house as a 2-family house. At that time, what happened was the wards who owned it, it was a small house when they bought it, but the family grew, and the daughter and granddaughter moved in, and they made an addition to the house, and then they came before this board and was granted a conditional variance. In this particular case, this father and son now have bought the house, and apparently when they saw the house, they saw it was used as a legal 2-family house and went ahead and purchased it. They came to me and they wanted to renew the temporary conditional variance so they could use it as a father and son house. The father and the son are both here, including the mother as well, who's in the back. Any questions you have, they'll be happy to answer. They bought the house. They intend to use it as a 2-family house with son and parents. I believe one of the most important considerations in granting a variance is what effect it has on the neighborhood. In this particular case, as you can see from a prior case that I argued here, was 3083. In this particular case, it used to be a 1-family zone, and then it was rezoned for 2-family zone. My clients had a small house, and it wasn't suitable to make that application because it was just like a bungalow. So, because it was a bungalow house, it was a small house. And then by the time they came to me, the law had changed, and they could no longer of right get it as a two-family house. So the most important point for my consideration is I believe that about 75 to 80% of the houses on that block are now either used as a two-family house. So if you were to grant this conditional two-family use, I don't believe there would be any harm to the particular neighborhood. Those are my remarks. If you have any questions, either myself or the father or the son will be happy to answer.
Mr. Smith, I just want to make clear. So when the applicant, your client, bought the house now, they want to continue a temporary conditional variance, or are they seeking for a permanent conversion to a two-family house?
No, the application is to continue the conditional two-year use.
So the condition then would be as long as father and son or family of father and son are residing in the house?
Yes, I believe that was the condition before, but it was mother and daughter.
Do any members of the board have any questions?
Yeah, was that, Mr. Smith, was the house purchased as a single-family house?
I'm not certain about that. I did not represent either my old client Ward or my new client when they purchased, but I would call up one of them and they can answer the question.
Yes, please, come on up.
I know for sure they examined the house that was laid out as a two-family house. Yeah, come on up, go to the microphone, give your name and address. You recall what the question is.
Hi, name and address, please.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Leonard Mangelli. I reside at 245 Westchester Street, Long Beach, New York. The home was renovated in 2013. It was originally a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. They added an addition on top and replicated what was on the bottom, an additional 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. So now it's currently 6 bedrooms, 4 baths, completely separate, 2 kitchens and whatnot, that the electric was permitted for. The mother-daughter
I
variance.
just want to stop you for a second. So,
Yeah.
so you have 2 meters right now?
That is correct. There is 2
independent
electric meters,
services.
yes.
Okay.
So the house was purchased from Everton Ward and Cynthia Ward. They filed for this variance, but it was not transferable. That was the contingency upon sale. So what happened was the stove needed to be removed and whatnot for me to take possession of the home. And I understood I had to file said permits and whatnot to get to the place that they got themselves to.
So it was communicated to you that it was a one-family house?
Yes, it was sticky, you know, because they had the permits. I didn't find out till last minute of the sale of closing that it wasn't going to be transferred. Because in other towns, I've owned a home in the town of Oyster Bay, they transfer it, so I was unfamiliar with how it was going to work, but here I am just working the protocol.
You know, now, just as a legal question, and I would even ask this of counsel, I always thought, my understanding was always that if a family, you know, of the same immediate family, let's say a father and then their child, even if they had, let's say, children or whatever, the child had children, right? And they were residing in the house, that they could legally continue to do so, just even as a one family. You know, they're immediate family, so technically they don't need to make the conversion, am I correct? Okay.
So they're immediate family? They're immediate family to who's
It's
there?
father and son,
No, I know they are, but the people who lived there before.
mother and daughter.
Right.
I mean,
And just for the record, at the time that the house was purchased, the second kitchen had not been ripped out. It was present in the home at the time of purchase.
And you're going to reside in one of the apartments and your father in the other? Or are
That's
you
correct.
planning on residing in one of the apartments and renting out the other?
No, I reside upstairs and the parents downstairs.
I mean, the situation is this, so basically what we would be continuing is we would be continuing a temporary conditional variance to maintain the second kitchen. If the situation remains the same, that the father and son were residing in a house, you know, because I guess, you know, people need privacy too, it'd be nice to have a second kitchen, but it would have to be with a strict enforcement of the fact that no one else could ever reside there. So, you know, if, let's say, you as the son decided that, you know, it was a little cramped and you wanted something bigger, your dad could not rent this house out to someone else. The apartment would have to, the kitchen would have to be ripped out for sure. And I don't know what he'd want to do with the other bathrooms and, you know, bedrooms, but it isn't something that can be turned into an Airbnb or, you know, transient renters, you know, to be clear on that. Because if we did grant it as a temporary conditional variance, you know, we do that because even though they're technically no mother-daughters in Long Beach, we do grant temporary conditional variances for the second kitchen. And to my point before that I asked counsel, is that technically a family, let's just say, you know, parents, and then you have the children with their children, you know, residing in the other part of the house. When it's all one family, you don't even need a variance or a temporary conditional variance to live in that situation because it's one multi-generational, let's say, immediate family. But it's the addition of the second kitchen that triggers the need for the temporary conditional variance. Am I correct?
Rocco, can I ask a question? Doesn't there have to be a hardship for us to grant this?
Not necessarily.
I think there is. I think there does.
Additional temporary use variance there is, at this point. Counsel, I mean, Mr. Smith, do you happen to, or does your client have an articulatable hardship? I mean, because notwithstanding the fact that the prior owners had additional temporary use variance, I mean, on the certificate, the C of O, the certificate of occupancy, it was clearly a single-family house at the time of purchase. Again, also taking into consideration that the second kitchen was not ripped out at the time, this had to be communicated because the C of O said it's a single-family house. It had to have been communicated that this has to come out.
Well, apparently there was some discussions to that, but obviously the obvious hardship is that it was purchased at a price equal to a two-family house. And as he says, he's had other situations like this, and normally they didn't even have to go for a new hearing. The thing just sort of transferred by itself. In this particular case, apparently, they were cautious. That is, the attorney for the seller who sold it to them was cautious and wanted to alert them to the fact that they were selling it pretty much as a one-family house, but the price is a two-family house. And of course, it would be a tremendous hardship if he couldn't use it as a two-family house. I'm not a real estate broker or appraisal, but I would assume that the difference between selling a house as a one and a two-family house is at least $50,000, perhaps as much as $80,000. So I don't know the price he paid. If you want to know, he of course can tell you that.
I guess my only concern here personally is the fact that, notwithstanding that they paid more money for the house, once either the father or the son move from the house, right, or the house is sold, you know, and they sell the house, it automatically folds back to a single-family home. So that excess money that was spent, it's not like that's going to be recovered, you know, at the time of the sale, because no matter how you look at it, it's still a single-family house, whether the conditional use variance is granted or not.
But it's recovered in the sense that hopefully they'll live long enough together that the savings of a $3,000 or $4,000 a month rental, time a number of years, represents the reason to pay more for a house that you could use as a two-family rather than one.
They would have to continue transferring it to other families, you know?
We have no objection to, I think the Ward case was also granted on the condition, and of course, one of the conditions being that it be used by this family as a father-son house, or a parent-son house. We would have no objection to such a condition, and I believe that that was one of the conditions that were granted in case number 3083.
Yeah,
Any other members of the board have any questions?
as per Mr. Creighton, when is there a mortgage on this property?
Yes.
Okay, so when the appraisal was done, did they ask you to do anything with either kitchen?
No.
So the appraiser went in there, the bank
Well, I'm
gave
not
you-
sure exactly who it was. Someone suggested to make the sale, that the stove needed to be removed for the walkthrough, and I'm not sure who actually applied themselves there.
What I'm getting at, sir, is that a lender is not going to lend there if there are two kitchens and they know it's a single-family house. Okay, they may suggest, or someone might suggest, to take out the stove of the second unit. Did they ask you to do that?
Yes.
Okay, so you knew you were buying a single-family house. This didn't happen at the last minute.
Yes.
Okay. So then it lends towards the hardship part of this then.
Right.
Okay.
And my comment there would just be that we're partners in the house. I'm a young entrepreneur. They're going to be subsidizing the time. We're partners in the house. I'm a young entrepreneur. They'll be subsidizing me with my note as they stay when they choose to.
You and your father are partners?
Yeah.
And do you still have a house in Oyster Bay?
No.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else? Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak? Okay, I think I'd like to hold it over, because I think that we don't have a full board tonight, Mr. Smith, and I think that this is something that the board may want to think about, and certainly give an opportunity to the other members to read the transcripts on the case, before a vote, so that there's a fair vote on the case. So the case is going to remain open until vote.
You're living in the house now, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, all right.
Okay?
Will
Yes,
it remain open for us to present further testimony?
if you'd like to.
Yes.
Yeah, so the case will remain open to vote for two reasons. First of all, I think I can sense that some of the board members would like to think about it, number one. And number two, because we only have a minimum board tonight, since it might be something that the board wants to consider, I think in all fairness to you and your client, I think we should remain with the case open and maybe have the opportunity of more board members weighing in on it at the next meeting.
What date will that meeting be?
December,
December 16th.
December 16th?
Yeah, so if you want to present anything, or if you feel that your client has a hardship and it's something you want to present, then you certainly have the opportunity to do that.
Okay, we'll be back on the 16th.
Well, they
All right.
have to present it before the 16th.
unless,
Yeah.
present it before the 16th, unless you want us to renotice the meeting and you appear again, but it would have to be, we would have to notice it. There would have to be another mailing. Otherwise, it would just be in
Any
writing.
documentation will be presented before the meeting in mail.
But if you need further check for the mailing, just let me know. Whatever-
Do you want to appear before the board again, Bob, at the next meeting?
We'd like that option to do so, yes.
Okay.
Can I
So
say-
then I'll renotice it.
I'd like to see you present a case for a hardship, because, what I want to say is, we give these temporary variances for specific conditions to specific, situations. That situation clearly did not transfer over to you, because it was that family that got the variance. And if it did, we'd have this problem where we'd be creating two-family houses all over Long Beach for
Yeah.
people that would create a hardship.
The other thing is too, to your point, is that even if, let's say, the original family, right, their 2 years, were up, that their variance, that they had presented the hardship 2 years ago, we would want them every 2 years, when they renew, they would have to prove evidence to us that that hardship was continuing. So if they hit the lottery or something in the meantime, they would no longer have a hardship, you see, if it was financial. So we are treating this no differently than if you were the original applicant that had this temporary conditional variance granted 10 years ago, and you had come back 5 times already. Every 5 times, we would want to be sure that we were renewing it again on proper grounds. Okay?
Yes.
So, it's a good thing. So anyway,
Okay.
thank you very much, and we'll hear from you before next month.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, go.
Case number 3261, application of Lorraine DiGilio and Barry Esposito of 128 Atlantic Avenue, Long Beach, New York, for a variance in the following sections of the zoning code of ordinances of the City of Long Beach, New York. 9-105.6A use, 9-105.6H density, 9-1121 off-street parking, to convert a one-family to a two-family use at 128 Atlantic Avenue, Long Beach, New York, also known as Section 59, Block 196, Lot 10, on the Nassau County Land and Tax Map.
Good evening, Chairman. Kenneth Apple, 30 West Park Avenue, Suite 202, here tonight on behalf of the applicants, Lorena Giglio and Barry Esposito, who own and reside at 128 Atlantic Avenue. Real quickly, what you have is the first set of staples is the neighboring properties that are two families. The second set of the photos of the downstairs apartment. Well, it's not an apartment now, it's a one-family house. And the third thing is a sort of a breakdown of their monthly expenses. To expand on what Commissioner Creighton had said in the last hearing, this is going to be presented as a hardship. To begin, I want to be clear, the applicants originally had begun this as a two-family application. They consulted me before the last zoning hearing, and after a couple of meetings, we decided that clearly this was the better way to go. This is a conditional application, a 2-year, conditional use. Based on their hardship. I did represent them when they purchased. It was a one-family house. We went to contract in September of 2020. We closed in February. It was a lengthy transaction due to some permit issues. They planned to move to this area from Connecticut due to the fact that Lorraine's daughter lives in East Rockaway, and they wanted to be closer to their daughter in East Rockaway, close to their daughter and grandchildren. Since their purchase, Mr. Esposito, who had an architectural design business, he has lost his business due to COVID. It was declining, up until COVID, and he's been unable to restore it, therefore costing him about $125,000 a year in income, which has necessitated this application tonight. I attached the spreadsheet with their monthly expenses. It's kind of tight, obviously. Certainly, I would say their hardship is self-created other than the fact that he lost his business. We did buy it as a one-family. We know it's a one-family. We plan to make no structural changes to the home. It's set up on the CO. There's 2 bedrooms downstairs. Half of that is what we plan to do as an apartment. It'll be a bedroom and a living room with a bathroom, and there's a little kitchenette which does not have a stove. Everything in there currently is legal and up to code. There's no issues with that. So we only plan on renting out the one half of it under the conditional use if you see fit to grant it. So there's going to be no alterations to the property. It's separated by a door from the stairs that lead downstairs. It is a double lot, which justifies a little bit of the loss of the spot that we're going to have by having a tenant, if granted. And like I said, all we have to do is add a stove upon your approval, and we're ready to go.
So, Mr. Apple,
Yes.
so now, Mr. Giglio and Mr. Esposito, how are they related again to each other?
They're partners.
Okay, that's fine. So my question is now, at this point, you're saying that Mr. Esposito's business is completely closed?
Yes.
And Ms. DiGilio just relies on the Social Security that she's getting?
Yes, she retired from her primary income, or primary employment. She was a realtor in Connecticut, and retired when she moved down here, like I said, to be closer to her family.
Okay. How large is the apartment that they would be renting?
It's only going to be half of the downstairs. So if you look at the CO, it says den, 2 bedrooms, bathroom, boiler room. So when you walk down the stairs, the left side is a big den. They're going to keep that as their family room. And then there's the garage. That's the whole left side, facing the front of the house.
Right.
The right side is 2 bedrooms, that tiny kitchenette that I showed you pictures of.
This is the second this kitchenette, though. There is a
Correct.
regular full kitchen.
That
correct?
would be, we would put a stove in there and it's ready to go, or a hot plate. But it's currently, there's no stove there. It's just a second fridge and some cabinets. At one point in time, a prior owner must have rented this house, illegally, I guess. It was never a two-family. We know that. We didn't buy it as a two-family. We had no intention of
Yeah.
converting it until this happened.
I mean, it looks like kind of 70s, 80s decor, so it
Yes.
looks like it was done a long
It
time
was
ago.
years ago, and every surrounding house there is a two-family for whatever reason, 129, 127, 130, 132 Atlantic, and the two homes directly behind them on Pacific are two families as well. That's that first clip I gave you. So it's not, like, Mr. Smith presented before, it's not going to create an uncharacteristic, change in the neighborhood. Clearly, there's plenty of two families that were granted back in the 70s or whenever they were granted. I mean, I know that, currently they're not re-granting them, so I don't think it's substantial. Certainly, they didn't create this hardship. It's not self-created. Quite frankly, it was a long transaction due to permits, which is still open. If we had known he was going to lose his job from September or his business from September to February, we probably would have just killed the deal and not closed. But unfortunately, after he closed in February, now we were stuck with, a house living down here with the taxes, and we want to stay here. This would be a great assistance. Obviously, the conditional gives you the opportunity to monitor him and monitor them. If there's any issues in 2 years, they're denied. And clearly
So
we're
really
not-
the expenses, though, of running the house are there's no mortgage on this, right? Everything is
There's
just
no mortgage,
basically-
correct,
Everything is just basically the monthly nuts
correct,
of the insurance and taxes, et cetera.
yes.
And then that leaves them about maybe $15,000 a year to live for car and food and everything else, am I
Yes.
correct?
And how much rent do you anticipate?
I mean, it's going to be a one-bedroom because the second bedroom will probably have to be a living room. So, I'm not 100% sure of the going rate. Maybe, since it's small, maybe $1,250, $1,500.
Yeah, I'd say maybe more than that today.
Well, it is a tiny kitchen.
I'm not saying it's a bad or a good thing, but that's what the market's probably going to
Yeah, I
bring.
mean, obviously, that changes, but
Yeah, and that would prejudice how I would vote on it.
it's a tiny kitchen, and like you said, it's a little
Yeah.
outdated,
Well, does any member of the board
So-
want to speak?
Just to clarify, they lost their business after February.
his business closed up after February, yes.
After February.
Anyone else? Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to speak?
And on that, Chairman, I mean, we're applying for a conditional two-family, and nobody's here to oppose it, so.
If we do, again, as I mentioned to the other case, we have a minimum board. I would withdraw my motion, but I would be willing to move to grant this. I think you presented evidence. I think that the hardship is there. If the man lost his job, I mean, certainly I have my own business, and I know what it's like trying to survive after COVID. And I would move to grant.
Just one of the this is the house right here, the one with the two mailboxes?
Yes, that's our home.
All right, so I'll move to grant if somebody wants to second it.
I'll second it.
Case number 3261, application of Lorraine DiGilio and Barry Esposito of 128 Atlantic Avenue, Long Beach, New York, for a variance in the following sections of the zoning code of ordinances of the city of Long Beach, New York. 9-105.6A use, 9-105.6H density, 9-1121 off-street parking to convert a one-family into a two-family use for a 2-year conditional temporary variance at 128 Atlantic Avenue, Long Beach, New York, also known as Section 59, Block 196, Lot 10, on the Nassau County Land and Tax Map. Chairman Morelli has introduced a motion to grant the application. Commissioner Acevedo has seconded the motion. Commissioner Creighton?
Grant temporary variance.
Commissioner Acevedo?
Grant with temporary variance?
Commissioner Brooks?
Grant with temporary variance.
Chairman Morelli?
Grant temporary conditional variance.
This application has been granted a 2-year conditional temporary variance.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a good night.
Case number 3268, application of Struzo LLC of 1048 West Beach Street, Long Beach, New York, for a variance in the following section of the zoning code of ordinances of the city of Long Beach, New York. 9-11216 off-street parking. For off-street parking, in order to combine 2 stores for the enlargement of a restaurant at 1048 West Beach Street, Long Beach, New York, also known as Section 58, Block 105, Lot 1, on the Nassau County Land and Tax Map.
Good evening, sir. Name and address, please.
Good evening. My name is Dov Hadass, architect, 600 Shore Road, Long Beach.
Good evening, Mr. Haddad.
Dov, D-O-V, Hadass, H-A-D-A-S, 600 Shore Road.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hadas. So, the property that you're here, 1048 West Beach, that you're looking to combine, looks like two storefronts, am I correct?
That's
Yes.
correct, yes.
So, Mr. Hadas, what would be the total frontage that the two stores would have?
The total frontage is going to be 32 feet.
Okay. What's the business that exists there at present?
Currently, Mr. Benedetto Cantrella with his sister Martina Cantrella, they're running a vegan store over there, vegan restaurant.
They're two separate stores, two separate restaurants?
Right now, they're two separate stores, yes, but they're running out of one store that is totally legal. They're running their vegan restaurant, which is a small establishment. It's 15 feet by 40 feet deep. And they do breakfast and they do lunch. The place is not open for dinner. As a vegan restaurant, there's no grilling, there's no real cooking, so they don't have a real heavy-duty kitchen. But they do need preparation space. So they leased the store next to them, which used to be, I believe, a tax store or something. And the combination of the two stores will yield a larger preparation area, an office, and some storage space, and that's about it. They have some tables on the original space, which is going to stay just about the same thing. There's a counter and there's a kitchen in the back of that same area. But as I said, preparation is for that type of food is very expensive, expensive with an A. So they need a larger space, and that's where they're going to use that additional space for preparation, not so much for sitting for tables. The block itself, the building itself is located the stores are located in a building that is at the head of a very long block from West Beach Street all the way to the ocean. Excuse me. They are on a sort of a peninsula where they're bound by Georgia Avenue on one side, West Beach in the front, and Florida Avenue on the other. Well, we call it a side, but essentially there are three fronts. The entire building is about 10,000, the entire lot is about 10,800 square feet. There's about 40 apartments on there and 5 stores.
So basically, they would have the tandoori place. It's a tandoori place, right next door.
Yes, the tandoori.
Then the tattoo artist place next door. And so now, at this junction, they would require 8 parking spaces for both two stores. Am I correct?
You're correct. This is according to section 9112-16. They required 8 parking spaces.
What
However,
would the hours of operation be?
from morning till afternoon,
So there's no dinner served?
no dinner served.
Okay. Do they have any alcohol license or?
No.
Oh, that's right, it's halal. So basically, the nature of the business that's operating at present would
Yes.
not really be changing. They would just be having more room.
Exactly.
Okay. What about seating inside?
Sitting inside is really not going to change because the additional space, as I said, is just going to be used for additional preparation area and for a small office and a little bit of storage, and that's about it.
Okay.
We're only opening a small doorway between the two stores. The wall between the two stores is mostly will remain the same.
Okay. Do any members of the board have any questions?
I have a few questions, but really this is just about off-street parking, so I want to ask them because I really believe there's nothing we could do.
I'm sorry, it's hard for me to hear you.
Sorry, there's nothing, I mean, this is just an application for off-street parking, so questions about, that I was going to ask about the inside don't necessarily matter. And these storefronts exist, there's no current parking, there's nothing we could do to increase the parking at those locations.
Nothing we can do.
I see no issue with the application as far as, what you're requesting, because we have to do what we can to help businesses survive in this town, and
Yeah,
to ask you to put in parking where no parking exists would require you to
The
demolish
building was
building.
built in 1929, and at that time, parking was not an issue in Long Beach, I suppose.
Exactly. Okay.
They probably had Model Ts, They weren't very big.
Horses.
All right. Does anyone in the audience want to speak either for or against? Okay, nobody wants to speak. All right, I would move to grant.
I'll second.
Case number 3268, application of Struzo LLC of 1048 West Beach Street, Long Beach, New York, for a variance in the following section of the zoning code of ordinances of the city of Long Beach, New York. 9-11216 off-street parking. For off-street parking, in order to combine two stores for the enlargement of a restaurant at 1048 West Beach Street, Long Beach, New York, also known as Section 58, Block 105, Lot 1, on the Nassau County Land and Tax Map. Chairman Morelli has introduced a motion to grant the application. Commissioner Creighton has seconded the motion. Commissioner Creighton?
Grant.
Commissioner Acevedo?
Grant.
Commissioner Brooks?
Grant.
Chairman Morelli?
Grant.
This application has been granted.
Thank you very
All right,
much.
you're very
board.
welcome.
Have a happy holiday.
Done.
Ladies, you too, Mr. Dotz. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now be closing this meeting. Any cases that were not voted on this evening will be held open for voting. Thank you very much. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
There's some
This
people.
meeting is now closed.
Wasn't there something else we had to vote on?
No.